Hey guys, I want to quickly run through my arcane build setup. This will involve a respec, but I kind of want you guys to see that part anyways. So let's get right into it. We want to use arcane magic, so incantations, dragon spells, which means when it comes to our offhand, there is really only one option outside of like going for madness or something like that, and that's the dragon communion seal. For our helmet, there are two helmets that raise arcane, but the Mask of Confidence has no downsides, so I would use that. The other ones do have downsides. Rest of the armor doesn't matter. We're only going to have 25 endurance in this build, so something on the lighter side. I really like Hoslow's set. I think not only does it offer good protection, but it also looks super cool. Hoslow's set, there we go. In terms of charms, the Earth Tree +2, almost every build's going to use this, and then we want to use everything to do with our incantations. So greatly raises potency of incantations with the canvas flock canvas, and then we want shorter spell casting time. Important, I think, when you're using breath attacks. And then the last talisman's a bit of a flex slot, but since we are using blood magic, I would use the seal that increases your attack power based on blood loss. Now, when it comes to arcane weapons, much of the scaling on a lot of these arcane-based weapons is currently broken. For example, the Bloody Helix isn't scaling like it's supposed to, which is a cool, heavy thrusting sword. I was really excited to use something like the Rivers of Blood Katana, but it's not scaling properly. You can still use it; people are to good effect. And mostly, I wanted to use the pole arm, but it is absolutely not scaling properly. It does 300 damage no matter what your stats are, which is not what we want. But there is a hidden OP arcane weapon that I'm not sure a lot of people know about, and I'm here to tell you. I'm here to tell you. The Ripple Crescent Halberd is phenomenal for an arcane build. It has S scaling in arcane. It only requires 12 strength and 12 dex to wield, meaning you do not really have to make sacrifices away from arcane, so you can really beef up your spells and attacks. And it's just halberds in general have good move sets. They're solid weapons, decent reach, decent speed. No real downsides to a solid halberd, and we'll go over the move set and stuff. Afterwards. So, when it comes to the incantations that I use, I played through most of the game actually with this build, so I'm quite familiar with it. We want a weapon buff. There are two weapon buffs you can use. One is Blood Flame Blade, which is kind of the bread and butter one. But if targets can't bleed, you can use the Dragon Bolt incantation as well. We will have 23 faith, and that gives a little bit more AR than the Blood Blade. But obviously, this build centers a lot around bleed, as we are going to be using blood magic. And then we get into our bread and butter blood spells, which is Swarm of Flies, one of the best spells in the game in its current state. Blood Boon, which is a really nice AoE, and also it creates puddles on the ground that you don't want to walk into, so it can create space. Blood Flame Talons. Blood Flame Talons isn't that great, but thematically, I just feel like we need it in build. It's better in PvP than it is in PvE. It doesn't stagger as much as I would like in PvE. And then we take our Dragon's Breaths. We take Glintstone Breath for when things are weak to magic. We take Rot when we want to cheese something, essentially, like just do damage and run away. And Borealis' Mist has the biggest AoE of all the spells. So if you're trying to hit many targets at once or AoE farm, I would use that. And then I just use a flex slot of, we might as well take Flame Cleanse Me and be able to cure Poison and Scarlet Rod. We're going to have the faith to do it anyways. So let's see, what's our highest cost faith here? 23. 23 faith. So we go to respec.
Is it time? Now.
And so we want 30 mind, which is enough to cast any breath twice before having to recharge. You're not going to get much more efficient than that anyways. 25 endurance is the first drop off. I think it's a fine spot for casters. I ran the whole build with 25 endurance, and it was just fine. And then we need 12 strength, 12 dex, 23 faith. These are requirements for our weapon and incantation. And then we'll stop at 40. I think 40 is a good number for vigor for casters. Now, as I start putting points into Arcane, I want you to watch my right armament one with that halberd with the S scaling. So a lot of people seem to have some misconceptions about scaling in general. I could make an entire video about things I've discovered that don't match up with what common belief seems to be. The average, and people will say, well, AR starts to dip at around 60, right? That's not true, and I don't know if it's a bug or not with this weapon at all. Now, incantations supposedly drop off at 70, right? But you'll notice, look at as I add these points above 60, you'll see I'm actually still getting on average 3 to 4 points of AR per point in Arcane, going all the way up to 77. Look, I'm still going 3 points up, or 4 in that case, so 3 to 4 points per single point in Arcane. So when it comes to S scaling on this weapon, bugged or not bugged, I'm not sure, we're not only boosting our spells an insane amount, but also our weapon an insane amount by just reefing Arcane as high as it can possibly go. But obviously, since we still want to be castery, some sacrifices have to be made, or we won't have enough faith to do what we want to do. And then the other wonderful thing about using something like the Crescent Halberd, oops. So let's just head somewhere like I don't know, the Erd Trees prey room. That's a good spot. The other thing is, because this is a base weapon, it can of course be buffed. Okay? So with Bloodflame Blade, that takes us to 723 AR, which is very decent. With Vike's Thunder, it'd be something like 756 or something. So I really like the moveset on the Halberd. It's not too slow, and it reaches really far. And two-handed, it feels even better. It has a bit, but I use it one-handed so I can cast most of the time. Don't be afraid to try its crouch attack. You move forward, and swing, super efficient from crouching. You can also backstep poke, insanely efficient. That reaches super far. And so does the sprinting animation, which is the same animation. That reaches way further than you think it will. It's just a wonderful weapon that can be buffed. This is the prey room really where I want it to go. Maybe. Yeah, probably. So the bread and butter of the build is number one, even one-handed. You can see, whack these guys. Do not blow that horn for pretty nice damage. It's got a holding R2. Of course, the incline's gonna mess with that. It's got a holding R2 that does a wide sweeping arc, and see, immediately shattered his poise. This thing does a significant amount of poise damage, even against bosses. You'll be surprised, like, oh, I just broke his poise. All I did was whack him a few times with my. See, and there's that beautiful sprinting attack, which I really like, and backstep attack. Do not be afraid to abuse that. Super potent. And then Swarm of Flies is your bread and butter. It's so good. You could just sit here and cast this one spell all day long on enemies, from giants to humans to everything in between, especially if it can bleed. And even if it can't bleed, it just kind of messes, as you can see, with the enemies, so they can't really do anything, which enables free hits. Then if there's more than one enemy, don't be afraid to toss this bad boy out. So it's going to hit the wall. It's useful. Against multiple enemies, this is really nice. Deals a decent amount of damage, leaves the damage over time on the ground. Super nice. Rolling attack, also really nice with this. If you've seen any of my boss killing videos, you'll see that I ran this setup through most of the game. I should have changed my physic to boost faith even further to really, if you really want to ramp up your incantations, you can do that. So this is New Game Plus in the Howling Tree, right? Like these are significantly tough enemies. But it's easy to make short work of almost anything with this build. You do have to play a little bit safer. You're a caster at heart, right? I mean, you have a powerful weapon option, which is what every caster dreams of. But you are still a caster. But yeah, spam Swarm of Flies. Draw out a Blood Boon. You know, what are they going to do? And then if they get too close to me, I can two-hand this weapon and just it speeds up the moveset a little bit, changes the angles a little bit. It's both the one-handed and the two-handed moveset are really nice. And then the final thing I'll showcase is the breaths. So Glintstone Breath deals the most damage pound for pound, assuming that they are not strong against Glint. But it also doesn't have the longest reach. The decay is always good if you just want to throw Scarlet Rot on something, of course, or a bunch of things. Borealis Mist reaches the farthest. It has the biggest AoE of any of the attacks, and it will hit. I don't know if you saw exactly how far. These enemy types. Exactly how far back that hit, but it hits incredibly far and wide. So if you're trying to take down a lot of enemies at once, that might be the best option. But then, if you're just looking for pure damage, the Glintstone Breath is where it's at. You need to sit back and torch dudes. There you go. Like, that's pretty reasonable. Like, this is New Game Plus, right? So if you're walking around trying to clear this area for the first time, now my flasks aren't correct. They're still set up from my previous build, but you can just clear the area room by room, spell by spell, abusing your flies and your dragon breaths for a strong option. You'll also see I just farmed 178,000 souls in about 2 seconds. But that's pretty normal for New Game Plus. So I would in the Physic Flask, which is, I guess, part of the build. In addition to one of these damage negators, I would put the one that increases faith. So that way you can get even more hop on your spells, because you do have let's see, B scaling and faith. So faith certainly doesn't hurt your incantations with B scaling and faith. And then I would have my flasks set up something like just like, you can obviously change this based on taste, but I do something like 7/7, which enables me to clear almost any area, even if I decide I want to go breath heavy. I mean, 7 mana flasks is a lot. And yeah, that's it. That's the video. That's what I wanted to showcase. This is my take on an arcane build. I don't think it's anything too fancy, but I do think a lot of people are sleeping on this Ripple Crescent Halberd with its arcane scaling that just seems to go up infinitely. It is an awesome weapon with a great moveset and a much higher amount of poise damage than you may think. It drops from the frogs in front of Rhea Lucaria in the old abandoned town. And anybody you see walking around with this will drop it. But yeah, that's my arcane build. Until next time.